Hello again, and welcome to episode number 20, big 20 of Just Chillin'. I am your lovely, grizzled host, one of them. My name's Andy Bell.
And I'm Jessica Sideways. And I'm here to say that I think that this is probably may well be our worst podcast ever because we're both absolutely battered. Absolutely battered. No, I'm Andy Bell. That was Sean Hoffman. How you doing, mate? I'm stoked to speak to you. It's only been a week, but I tell you what, dude, it feels like an eternity because I have had 2 or 3 weeks of relatively mediocre stuff going on. And the last week, despite what we're going to talk about later on, has been absolutely mental. So, Sean, how are you, buddy?
I think I'm in the same boat. I mean, it doesn't sound like mine has been nearly as crazy as yours, but it does feel like it's been forever. Um, I am currently in Indiana now on my tour the US again. I've been hanging out here with family. My niece graduated from high school, and so we're doing the whole graduation uh,
Yay!
and an open house thing. She's the oldest grandkid, so it's the whole rigmarole. So yeah,
Yeah, it's the first
Madison,
time. The first is always important for the grandparents. So yeah, yay for that.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. And so it's warm, it's nice and humid here. Cats have been loving window time, checking out the birds. There's bird feeders right outside the window. So they have just been having a ball. I think this is their favorite place ever. Um, Other than that, man, we've just been, working, hanging out, being busy. I got some cool news. I've watched some stuff. There's been some cool, neat things that we'll talk about later. Um, I've got really behind on my podcast, so I've also been catching up on a lot of those. So it's kind of a whirlwind, but I'm trying to avoid like the most recent ones because I wanted to come into this fresh. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I did catch up on a bunch of them. Other than that, I mean, I'm good. I'm good. I want to hear about your adventures. You seem like you've got some exciting things to talk about.
Yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a really, really good week. I mean, first off, we had last week the I spent some time with Josh and Catherine over on the Star Wars Spell Outs podcast to just chew the fat and basically discuss, what our early thoughts were for the Acolyte, which we'll talk about later on. Really interesting to see some of the stuff that I was thinking about and some of the stuff that I was concerned about
Hmm.
really was quite dealt with very, very effectively in the first two episodes this week. Um, but yeah, no, I am talking to you, a somewhat enlightened person this last week because I have had, like I said, a couple of really, really quiet weeks, and then at the weekend, so sorry, let me go take a step back. Thank you, Josh. It was awesome speaking to you both, and I have to say, kind of take it for granted that you speak to these folks or you engage with these folks in Discord or in
Hmm.
some sort of social media manner. And it's been so long since I've spoken to both of them, face to face, as it were, albeit virtually. Um, that I missed it so much, and it was
Hmm.
for me really quite cathartic. Just speaking to both of them about just chewing the fat and stuff, and it was frigging awesome. And it makes you realize just how much I miss them, despite the fact that we via one way or another we're kind of engaging with each other all the time. But just talking to them face to face was brilliant. So I'm really grateful that he invited me to the podcast. But yeah, then we had. Well, I think I gave you the heads up last week that went to a 3-day festival. So it was 12 hours. So from 12 noon to 12 midnight for 3 days straight. We had a festival locally. It was relatively, I wouldn't say it's low key, but it was a very family friendly kind of festival. It wasn't like in the UK, if you know Glastonbury or the Reading or Leeds festivals. They're quite hardcore when it comes down to not only the lineup but also the type of people that go there. It was a more family friendly festival, but it's only 2 or 3 miles away from where we live, so which is the reason why we do it. And we've done it every year since it's been around because we try to pretend that we're still young, but also the lineup typically are a little bit older bands that we used to relate to when we were kids. And it was all right. I mean the lineup itself was all right. It was very much akin to Lucy's taste, sorry, rather than mine.
Mm.
In that there's an awful lot of popular bands there that played. So if you, I don't know if you know Texas, I don't want to love her, yeah, yeah. Texas, Ocean Color Scene, The Feeling, an awful lot of that kind of late 80s 90s bands, early noughties bands that kind of played, and they were very much in the the popular the pop charts at the time. But there's a couple of bands that I really wanted to see, and one was the first one was I don't know if you guys would even resonate with you guys, but there's a band in the 90s called the Stereo MCs. Stereo MCs kind of like a I'll call it a rap funk band. The best I can do, like dance, rap and funk. And they still absolutely slap, despite being, you know, of my generation. They still absolutely slap and did a really, really good job. A couple of surprises. There's the Future Heads, are a prominent British band who do an awful lot of stuff in the UK charts. I've never really liked their mainstream stuff, but seeing them live, they were amazing. So if you're into a little bit of ska, like the original Jam, or indeed cross with a little bit of harder. I don't want to call it punk because it wasn't in my mind. It's not punk, but they call themselves punk, like the Stranglers or indeed the Clash. They kind of sit in that kind of genre, and they were better live than they are than they ironically than they are in their mainstream releases. But ultimately, it was a chance for us all to get together and with friends, really good friends that we've had for many many years, and get absolutely wasted. I mean, the idea being a festival, you're allowed to camp over. We chose the camping option, but we came back every single night. The reason why we chose the camping option is that we were able to set up a little tent there and
Hmm.
fill it with all, of course, our food and our booze for the weekend, rather than have to traipse it backwards and forwards over the weekend.
Little
So
home
we had a
base,
little safe
uh,
space to go to. Yeah,
yeah.
we set up a little home base only 2 or 3 miles away where we could store everything because it's safe. It's safe. It's a relatively safe festival. No one's gonna pinch anything, and we had some fun. And the girls came back for the Saturday night, um, and they broke me again.
Nice.
They broke me again. It's like, Dad, do you fancy this little bit of this little drinky, or do you fancy this little drinky? And I, like a fool, I went along with it again, and they were partying all night and having a good time, and I was absolutely wasted. Anyway, I did it. I survived. I survived 3 days solid, and yeah, it got to Monday morning where it was the first day back at work, and I was a mess, an absolute mess, dude. I had a 9 o'clock meeting that first morning, and I had to explain myself. I honestly had to. It's the first time ever in my life that I've never been able to disguise it, because I was in such a state that I had to say, "Look, guys, this is what's happened over the weekend. I'm really, really sorry, but I had a great time with my family. Um, you know, forgive me." And they were all cool about it, thank goodness. But yeah, I was in a right state for at least 24 hours. Then um, my working week took me to Munich, and I'm thinking, I've got two or 3 days in Munich, meeting up with a few folk and getting a few things done, which are a priority at the moment. Which was great because the daytime was absolutely fantastic and was really really productive. And of course, these guys want to go out in the weekend. Go out in the evening as well. So you oblige because you want to be polite, and
Of course.
yeah, we're now at Thursday, and I honestly feel as if I probably need to go into a coma or induce a coma for about a week or so just to get over this because I'm not lying to you, mate. I feel quite beaten up by this whole process. But it's been good. It's been good fun. It's been really, really good fun. And then you know what it's like. We'll go into a stoic couple of weeks from now on, and then sorry for the next couple of weeks or so until the next one, and it'll be absolutely fine. But good God, I'm rather proud of myself. So yeah, that's been the last week for me, mate.
I mean, I think that's mine pales in comparison because the most exciting thing that like really kind of happened with me was at that high school graduation. So I went to a very small high school, um, and
Yeah,
this is a not small high school that she goes to. Not massive, but it's pretty big, and I think like 600 or 700 kids graduated. Um,
yeah.
and what I was amazed by, one, it was held in like the practice arena for where like one of our professional American football teams like practices. Um, and they had a concession stand open for the graduation. So like that was the best graduation I've ever been
Oh,
to, is
cool,
because you could get like big
cool.
pretzels or nachos and stuff like that while
Yeah.
watching kids walk the ceremony because it took forever. It took so long. Um,
You know,
and
I am in awe. I'm in awe of you guys because I mean, I went to what we call a state school over in the UK. So I went through the regular, the free education system that is available
mhm,
here, and it's all right. I mean, a lot of it depends on your state of mind as to how you want to do in life and the rest of it. But ultimately, you get the basics. And when you graduate in inverted commas, which means in our vocabulary, it means you pass your exams. Now go. It literally is that. Now go.
yeah.
You don't graduate.
Mhm,
You literally you have revision time to learn everything that you need to before you sit these exams. You then sit the exams, and then you're done. And then and then at some point you pick up your exam results and work out how well you've done as to whether you can go to the university that you want to go to. Or
mhm.
whatever, or you may not choose to go to higher education, but the point being is that or further education, sorry. But you basically you go. There is no leaving do. Now, in recent years, that's changed an awful lot, and I think that an awful lot of of UK schools now um, have leaving proms that
Mhm,
perhaps replicate what you guys do. But there's no actual ceremony. It's just a bunch
mhm,
of kids getting together and say, "Hey, listen, we've passed our exams, we've got into university, or we're going to we're going to go now move on into gainful employment. Let's go out for a party," and they organize it themselves. There's nothing like a school orchestrated um, graduation ceremony like you guys have, and I'm in awe of that because one thing that I felt until I'd landed, shall we say, in a decent job was that the pressure never stops. So you
mhm.
never get a chance to celebrate your high school. You never get a chance to celebrate properly the end of your university. It's kind of like, and you guys do it really, really well. And I know you sprinkle it with a massive amount of cheese, which I love.
Oh,
But the
yeah, yeah.
point being is you actually celebrate the achievement that these kids have done. And we don't do it. And I'm gutted for that, really, especially when it comes down to my own kids.
Well, it's closing a chapter. I think that's like the biggest thing. It's like it's less. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people look at it, it's like, oh, the ceremony's so cheesy, but it's like now the older I get, the more I'm like, no, it's more about like it's a pretty big chapter. It's a pretty big chapter, and I think it's also kind of that drawing that line in the sand. It's like you don't have to be that person that you were
yeah.
previously. This is a jumping off point, whether it's going into gainful employment, whether it's continuing your education or whatever, or military service or anything like that. But it's like, hey, you've done this for 12 plus years, however long, and uh, that is now done. And now it's it's up to you. You are set forth onto the world and go for it.
Now it
And
gets
because
even worse.
now it's time to pay for things even more than you already
Now
did.
it's life. Yeah. No, that's cool. I'm really happy for you. And it's your niece, isn't it, that's graduated?
Yep, yep. It's my niece, my oldest
Yeah,
niece,
that's
eldest
cool.
niece.
That's really cool. Please give her our congratulations, because that's really awesome. What else
I'll
have you
walk
been
up
up
to him.
to,
I'll be
mate?
like, Ellie, Andy says congratulations. She's like, Andy who? I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just know that he is very happy for you.
I said we collectively. Collectively we.
Nah, I
Us and our
gotcha.
many listeners.
Nah, there's dozens of us. There's literally dozens. Ah,
We're an army. So,
we're
dude,
a militia.
what about the what about the news? What about the news this week? I got to admit, mate, mine's relatively short-winded because I've not been spiritually or physically here for a week. So, anything in the
I, I've
news?
I've got one thing. I've got one. Because I think there's also an element of me too, where it's like, with some of the things that I've watched and the Acolyte and stuff coming out, I just don't care. Like I haven't cared about what
No.
like all the little nuggets, and so it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm focused. Like it's all been just kind of treading water until it's more exciting things happen. But I did have one, and that was the Hunters Star Wars Hunters game mobile game came out. I downloaded it. I haven't opened it yet. I keep being like, I'm gonna play that in a minute. I haven't played it yet. I feel like it kind of released with very little fanfare, probably because it's been on the release schedule for like 17 years. It feels like. But yeah, that's out. That's cool. I'm excited to eventually, tap that icon and open it and see what it's about. But yeah, that's there. That's all. That's the only news I
Yeah.
have. Everything else is just like, yeah, I
Well,
don't know.
well, it's funny you should say that because I can't get it. So I've got one of the, should we say the edition but last Android foldable product that, I mean, you've seen it before.
Mhm.
I've got a Galaxy Fold because it suits me when I go traveling. So I've got a tablet and a phone in one rather than having to take three devices. So it's while it's chunky as a device, it suits me beautifully when it comes down to travel, and it's not compatible. So I was like, "Yay, it's out!" Oh damn, I can't play it. And I was told pretty much straight away, no, you're not going there, son. You can crack on and find something else to play. So, good luck to all of you guys that are playing it and do have a compatible phone. I think I understand that Apple is a lot more successful than Android at the moment, in that you have a pretty unified experience across the whole thing. But yeah, I can't download the whole thing. So what I might do is I might steal Lucy's Switch and download it onto the Switch and see what it's like. But
I think I
yeah,
could
I'm not in
record
any rush,
myself
to be
playing
honest
it
with
and
you, because
send you the videos.
yeah, do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, do that. Let's just do that. I can just move my hands and just pretend I'm playing instead of you. Yeah, no,
We can just
I can do
I'll
that. No,
hold
I
it
can
up.
do
I'll
that.
hold it up to the camera, and then I'll just be like, "What do you want to do? Which button you want
That's
to push?"
exact. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. We might be dead by then. By the time it actually, I convey my instructions over to you, but it will work in my head.
We might make it through
No, I did.
the name selection character creator bit. It's like,
Yeah.
what name do you want? Tell me which letter you want. A. Okay. A. N. I got it. All right. That's all. The only news I
So I've
have.
got
That's it.
I got three pieces of news, dude. So I'm now disappointed with you and really impressed with myself. The first thing is
Join
um
the list.
my favorite yeah, I was gonna, yeah, mate, don't go there. Mate, sorry, my favorite anime conversion from gaming franchise to animation or some sort of franchise is sorry, some sort of uh um live action or animation or whatever, is Arcane. I love it. And I know that I need to finish Blue Eye Samurai because people keep saying if you loved Arcane, you're going to love this even more. But for me, Arcane, when it came out during lockdown, hit the right feels with me at the right time. Season two's come out and the promotional posters come out already. And it's saying that season two's coming out in November, which I can't be stoked for. I hated the game. I have to say, I hated the game itself. It's not my bag.
Mhm.
The way that it's kind of like Hawes and Steve talked about this today. I can't remember what genre it is, but it's basically a kind of world battle creator shit game. Um, but the
Nice.
series is amazing. Yeah, technical. But the actual series itself, the TV series is really is really really cool, and I love it. I absolutely I love it. I love the story. I love the animation. It's a French company that do the animation, and it's really my bag. I love the whole mixture of old age, yeah, the kind of steampunk feel about the whole thing. I freaking absolutely adore it, and I'd love for franchises that I'm a little bit more akin to, like Fable, for example, or
Ooh,
indeed
nice.
Bioshock. That Bioshock that again kind of promote that steampunk kind of aesthetic. I'd
Mhm.
love for that to be animated by the same company out in France, because they have a style and a aesthetic which really really lands well with me. Anyway, really excited about that. That's coming out in November. I hear that this is where I absolutely butcher a very very smart actor's name, but Hiroyuki Sanada, who of course we love from Shogun, is rumored to star in the Ghost of Tsushima movie,
Let's
which is amazing.
go.
I had no idea. I had no idea that the movie was even a thing. And I picked that up this week, and I've got no idea if it's qualified or it's just still a rumor or whether it's some fan baity type of thing, but it's cool. Really, really cool.
That's gonna be hard to, like, do justice, I feel like. Like, I'm excited for that movie, I
Yeah.
really am, but that's one of those games where it's like, the you fall in love with it because of the amount of time you spend in the game and spend with characters. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of those ones that's really difficult to convey properly. I think they can do it. It's definitely possible, but it's like, "Ooh, come on, please get this right. Do it well, because that's a really good story."
Yeah, I don't know anything about the story because I mean, despite you know, despite what most people think, I've actually got a PlayStation. I've got a PS5, and so but that's one franchise that I haven't played,
Mm,
and I probably need to play it based on an awful lot of the feedback and the excitement that I hear from the boys over at High Potion. Um, but I had no idea it was coming out in live action, if indeed that is a thing, and we're just not talking rubbish. And then the last thing that I picked up this week, and it was literally on the flight on the way back this morning, was there's a Alien Romulus, the film that is coming out, I believe, in August, that I got wrong as thinking it was a series, although there is an Alien series coming out. It's not the series; it's the movie that's coming out in our very very early days of this pod. I saw the full trailer today, and that looks
mhm.
awesome. It looks very, I mean, it's very very. There's two things about it I liked. Was one,
Spooky.
the aesthetic. Well, A, spooky. Well, okay, three things then. A, spooky. B, the aesthetic looks very much akin to the original,
Mhm.
the original Alien. And then lastly, the idea of casting younger actors, I think, is a genius idea. Bringing a new generation of followers and making it, um, I'm assuming, R rated. Sorry, PG-13 or PG-13 rated, as opposed to R rated. I think is a genius
Mhm.
genius piece of work, because hopefully that will give it the intelligence. Sorry, it will be able to establish a plan going forward, as opposed to perhaps the somewhat sporadic reboot culture that we've had with that franchise over quite a few years now. So yeah, it looked really good. It looked really,
It
really good. I
did.
was I was
I
pretty I was pretty impressed with that.
I saw that as well, and I'm excited because it's like it it looks like they're kinda going for a different level of depth and, like, a kind of a different approach with
Yeah,
it. Kinda I think you kinda hit it on the head there, where it's like, instead of the going down the reboot or spin-off where you kind of go into the crazy lore, which is all good. Like I appreciate some of those movies and things too, where it's like it kind of tries to give it too much backstory and too much lore and canon. I like that they're going younger actors and it feels more thriller-ish. Like they're trying to go more uh sitting on the edge of your seat, excitement, like um the popcorn flick going to the movies and like, ooh, I'm ready to do that shared experience and kind of that thriller not jump scare because I think that cheapens it, but I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Where it's like it's not about where did the aliens come from and what is their DNA and how many midichlorians do they have. It's the like here's a bunch of here's a ship and they're in trouble and here's some it's kind of connected, but it's also still fun.
But what I like about it is that, yeah, no, I love that because that wasn't the original. If you remember how you felt, I mean, I remember how I felt when when I watched the original Alien, and the effects aren't great. You know,
Hmm.
it's really about the tension. It's really about the the tension that it creates, and you don't see an awful lot. And part of
Hmm.
the beauty of the original Alien that was that the technology wasn't there for to be able to make the xenomorph look lifelike. And so what they did was they pretty much bathed it in darkness
Hmm.
pretty much all the time during the film, and it was a tension and the very very clever editing that created that tension to make what was being suggested believable. And I like that. I really like that with what's being approached here. And then there is a, if I was to be a little bit negative, you know, there will be certain people that will say, "Oh, we've dumbed down the whole thing, and there's kids involved now, and it's here we go, and it's like we're ruining a franchise, the rest of it." But somewhere during some at some point during the trailer, someone says "fuck," and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, hang on a second, no, it may not be. It may not be what most negative Nancy's will be thinking about, which is it's gonna be another Disney production, which is going to ruin everything for everyone." I actually thought it looked really, really good, and having that tenseness there, having the relevance of having younger people there to drag them, kicking and screaming, into enjoying the franchise, so that there's longevity there. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks great,
Me
especially if they
too.
do the same kind of job that they did with the director streaming. I mean, think about the same. I don't know how much of the original crew are there, but I mean, look at what they did with Prey, for example, with Predator.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
good. I
that's
love
another
Prey.
franchise that, and it's supposedly the same universe. It's a piece of work, that film. So if we get something like that, or the same kind of thinking about reinventing the franchise but keeping it consistent with the existing canon, then great, absolutely fantastic. Well up for it. Okay, so let's go on. Let's move on from that. I'm going to ask you what you're listening to, what you're reading, or what you're watching, or have watched, or started watching, or still watching over the last week.
Well, first I was, I listened to our buddies over at Star Wars Spelt Out, So I listened to my good friend Andy over there, chewing the fat, giving us thoughts and opinions. I thought that was really cool and really good. Listening to all of our other friends on their podcasts. Um, love the
Cool.
shout outs. Like I'm not like pandering, but it means once again, it just means a lot to hear everybody talking like we're pretty new and it's so cool to hear like everybody just being like, "Oh yeah, they got a good thing going over there. You should check them out." It's like, "Oh my god, I'm dying a little inside. Thanks
Yeah, I know.
everybody."
It's insane. It's really insane, isn't it? I mean, because it's just, I just feel it like I said to you, well, last week, if not the week before, it's just like you and I talking. It doesn't, there happens to be a mic in the way.
Like,
So the
wait,
fact
other
that other
people are
people are
listening to this?
enjoying it as well.
I should probably get it together. I should probably check the news or something.
Yeah. No, it's really cool.
um, I saw something on Disney Plus that I've been waiting for,
Hmm.
and that is Jim Henson Idea Man. I watched that little documentary.
Oh, you have.
I have.
That's
It was it was really good. It was really good. I think when I got done watching it, I kind of had this immediate epiphany of like, it's funny how in the day of like modern documentaries and stuff, like you kind of like there's times you catch yourself having an expectation of like you're gonna get like this. That's almost like a stereotype anymore of like, oh, we're gonna
Mhm.
get some big reveal, almost like a not a true crime, but like investigative things, like not necessarily negative, but there's just some big emotional pull and all these big
Yeah.
stereotypical things. And I was pleasantly surprised that it didn't really have that. It wasn't like watching a documentary on like Walt Disney where they're like half of it's like the same stories you heard about his childhood, and then it's all this like the man, the myth, the legend, and oh, it's all this inspiring music and everything is so great, and go out and you can be anything and everything. It's like
Yeah.
it wasn't that, and it was really refreshing. Like it showed like not that there was like horrible sides or anything like not like oh you used to beat up kids in the parking lot or whatever. Like nothing like that. But it's just like it showed that they were real people and like, hey, maybe like it gave you insights into things and it was still like really cool to see behind the scenes and hear people. Frank Oz was in it a lot. I didn't realize how
Yeah.
I knew Frank Oz was really involved, but I didn't realize how close they actually were. And that was
Oh,
really cool to
wow.
see. Um, like his kind of like number two guy. All forever. And that was really interesting.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
I never knew that they were actually that close. And yeah, it was a really good documentary. And if you like the Muppets and you like that kind of stuff, I really recommend it 'cause it was really enjoyable.
Well, I mean, everyone loves the Muppets. I'm sure they do, but I'm, it's what else they did as well. I mean, the whole stuff, with, I mean, while the Muppets were impactful, for me at a certain age, what really landed it was for me was, productions like Labyrinth or productions
Mhm,
like, um, Dark Crystal, in particular, Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal really messed around with my head when
mhm.
I was a kid in a really good way, really, really good way, and it got me into some really funky, dark stuff that I started really enjoying, and I really haven't stopped enjoying since. So no, it's great, really, really good.
It was cool. It was cool that they called all of those Muppets. That's what was funny. It's like there's Muppets like trademark, the Muppets, but then they called all of that
Yeah.
stuff Muppets. But yeah, they covered the Dark Crystal, the Labyrinth stuff, and they had some like behind the scenes stuff I'd never seen for Dark Crystal. And on that note, I'm still will never forgive Netflix for canceling that show, like the series
Oh,
that
what
they
is
did.
going on there? I mean, that's one of those slow burns that could have just like been consistent and. Oh, listen, let's not go there. We're a positive podcast. Did they talk about? Because I remember them. I think it's from Jedi to. Oh, it's something from Star Wars to Jedi, which was a third documentary. They never did a proper documentary for Return of the Jedi. They did like a making of Star Wars, making of Empire Strikes Back, and then they did like a almost like a recap, focusing heavily on Jedi as the making of Jedi documentary. Anyway, point being is that I remember during that documentary, I'm sure they called the Muppets then as well. Did they even cover Return of the Jedi?
No.
Or even Yoda in Empire? Because that came from the
Uh,
workshop across the road.
no, it is not a that and I think that's one thing that surprised me is, like, you kind of expect it to be about Jim Henson and his legacy and everything that maybe was in the works, but it's like he died, and then
Yeah.
here's a couple, like, post. It's like, "Nope, they didn't kinda pander that" not to pandering, but it's like, it didn't go into, like, that legacy stuff, like,
Oh
heavily, like, that
wow.
was,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
about the life of Jim Henson, and then, like, it had a couple people talking, then a couple
Yeah.
sentences
Yeah.
about, like,
Got it.
here's things that were working, it's like, so, yeah, they didn't go into all of like, they didn't they
Well,
didn't even
I
talk about
guess
the
I
the
guess that
Disney the
makes sense.
Disney deal falling through. They didn't even I was like, "Oh, now they're gonna talk about the Disney deal falling through when he died," and it's like, "Nope, done."
I guess that makes sense because everyone pretty much. I mean, we pretty much know George's story, wax lyrical.
Mhm.
We remember the idea. The guy loved cruising, hence the reason why American Graffiti was his second movie, and yada yada yada, and so on. And I would say that Jim Henson's life. or background hasn't been covered. So yeah, it probably makes sense to focus predominantly on that as opposed to the work that he did. No, cool. I'll watch it, man. I really will watch it. What about anything else, mate?
I watched two other things. The
Yeah,
the one thing that I watched, you'll be very, very, very happy about. And Madison and I saw Furiosa last night in the movie theater. Wait,
and
why?
what do you think?
Watch it for your reaction. Well, first, I want to, hold off on that. What I thought about it for a second, and just really drag out some time and talk about a frustration I have with Regal movie theaters here in Indiana. They people always talk about how like previews and stuff are really long. They're like, oh, I don't get to the movie on time because there's whatever really long previews. Maybe it's where I've been and where I've watched movies for the last 10 years. But we went to that movie last night and I shit you not. We watched 30 minutes of commercials and previews before the movie started.
Yeah,
That was insane. I watched 10 minutes of Pepsi commercials. It's like Diet Pepsi. And then
yeah,
the next one is like, no, it's Starry. And it's like, what is happening? We got to right about that 30-minute
yeah,
point, and they weren't even previews. It was just like ads. It's like, this is nuts. What is happening?
yeah.
Um, so I just had to vent about that because that's crazy.
No, that's
That's just
pretty. That's
insane to
pretty
me.
much. That's pretty much the norm over here. Unless anyone, any one of our listeners based in the UK, Chris, Kev, Craig, anyone out there, let me know. But as far as I'm concerned, of all the of all the venues that we or the chains that we have over here, you pretty much got 15 minutes of ads, which are typically lifestyle ads, which is like drink, food, holidays, cleaning products, so on and so forth. And then you've got another 15 minutes of trailers. So yeah, you're at least talking about 30 minutes. And
Yeah,
that's the norm. It's been that way for quite a while though.
it's like we're like out like where I'm at. Like they'll do the ads like pre-roll like while you're just sitting there waiting, but then it hits like time to
Yeah.
watch the movie, and you'll do like 15 minutes of preview or 10 minutes
Yeah.
of previews or whatever. Like if you
Yeah.
have if you have three different movie
And if you
ads
watch it and if
that are
you
saying
watch it
like turn your
so,
cell
sorry,
phone off, then it's too long.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And do you know it's coming up to the main feature if the curtains go back a little bit more? Do you get
Well,
that as well?
and it did that, and then it played some previews that wide, and then next thing you know, right before the movie started, another Pepsi ad on the widescreen.
Oh
That's like,
fuck.
oh, I'm like, so it made it worse because you'll be happy to hear this. Once again, I was the only person in the movie theater. Well, I mean, Madison was beside me. So we are in this gigantor movie theater on a Wednesday night. Um, we just sit right in the middle, perfect seats, like the ones
Yeah.
where like there's the aisleway in front, so you have like the handrail, so you can like put your feet up
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
handrail because there's no seats in front of you. And so it's like just us
Yeah,
in the whole movie theater. So I'm in there, you just going, "Are you kidding me?" Like yelling at the screen, not yelling, but like quietly to myself, so Madison can hear and get annoyed with me.
yeah.
This is ridiculous. Somebody should write a letter. Uh, so yeah, it would. But all that to say, we did see Furiosa last
Cool.
night. We had nachos with cheese and we had a blue icy. Um, no, I really liked it. We really enjoyed it. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be. Like I didn't really
No.
look into anything. I know I heard a couple people talk about like kind of how the movie's structured a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
so I kind of had that in mind a little bit. But there was nothing really. I mean, I don't want deep. I know we'll deep dive it. We should deep dive it with some friends who've seen it and really enjoy it. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
enjoyed it. It was my 1 second summary is batshit insane, really fun, and like a good popcorn flick to go see in the movie theaters, and loud as hell. Um, it's just like check your brain at the door and just come in and have a really good time. Like
Yeah, yeah.
and gnarly too. There was some gnarly stuff in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that I was
yeah.
not expecting. But no, I really enjoyed it. That was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know we said that when you and I talk, sorry, when you get to watch it, we'll have a deep dive. But I think that with what we have to talk about this week, let's
Mhm.
just put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Um, and bring in a few friends that I know love that franchise. There's one guy in particular that I'm thinking of that absolutely adores that franchise. There's a particular lady that I know that adores that franchise, and maybe we can do something collab with them as well, if they'll, if we're worthy. That would be really cool to talk about because no, I loved it, dude. I absolutely loved it, and it was reassuringly familiar in that
Mhm.
it kind of carried on the kind of the vibe and the tone and the aesthetics of Fury Road. Because listen, I love the original trilogy. The original trilogy for me are freaking amazing. They're masterpieces for all the right and wrong reasons. They're masterpieces. What I loved about this film is that it sustains the kind of the vibe and, like I said, the aesthetic. It's very very burnt umber. Was very
Mhm.
very kind of um
But it's also not at times, and that's what's really
wasteland
cool.
aesthetic,
Yeah.
yeah, of the original. But of course, rather than being spaced over 3 days, it's spaced over a lifetime of a very very young, brutalized, exploited, and vengeful young lady. And it's so fucking good. It's, excuse my language, guys, but it is for me. It's really really good. It didn't need an awful lot of explaining, but I loved it. Like I said to you, 4/5 of the way through the movie, I thought this is amazing. And only a couple of stupid things happened, and we'll talk about it when we have the time. Only a couple of stupid things happened, and it changed the movie for me from being good to being brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I hope it gets another chance to, or a chance to develop and to do other things. There is word that George is planning another film with focused on Max again, called The
Mhm.
Wasteland. And I think he's considering Tom Hardy as the lead again, which would be great because I think he did a good job despite all of the naysayers that suggest that behind the scenes shenanigans was not great. But again, we don't maybe need to know how it's all made. Artists are artists, they're already entitled and overprivileged anyway, so why are we surprised? So anyway, point being is that it would be great to see it going. Unfortunately, it hasn't been a hit at the box office, which I'm really surprised at because I'm planning to go a second time. Friends of us have been, well, there's one in particular, Turbo's been, I believe, 3 times now, and it's like great, fantastic.
I think it's a
Originally went
terrible
by
time. It's a
himself. I
terrible
think
time of year to release this movie. Like it's everybody I know is swamped right now. Like, and they're just too
yeah, but
busy
it's
to go
not
to the
gonna. It's
movies.
it's never gonna be a Christmas classic. So when do you release it?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't
yeah.
release a Mad Max film at Christmas. It's not a feel good movie or a swashbuckling adventure. It's gnarly. It's gnarly as shit.
Well, but I think that's
But I
the
just hope
issue.
they get the opportunity.
Yeah, people think it's gonna make a ton of money. It's like it's just a bad time. Like, yeah, you could release a different time, and this maybe it's the right time
Yeah,
for it. But the expectation that
yeah.
it's gonna come out and beat Avatar is like it's. I mean, it's gonna do well on
No,
streaming
no,
and
no,
stuff,
no.
but for sure, it's gonna do really well at the
And
long
that's my
term.
point. And maybe from George's perspective, from George's perspective, sorry, suggesting to George that maybe going forward, streaming might be an idea for him. I mean, look at the success of different context, very different aesthetic, but very similar. Look at the success of Fallout.
Mhm.
There is an opportunity to create a really, really well written and extremely expensive um, post-apocalyptic, futuristic drama. I hope it's got legs. I really, really do because I love what they've done. I really love what they've done with that movie. Let's put a pin in it. Let's add it to
So
the list of many things
I
we
have
want to talk to.
I have two
Sorry.
takeaways though before we put a pin in that.
Yeah.
One, Hemsworth deserves some kind of award for his
Yeah,
acting in that
I know,
movie.
man.
Uh, I think it's the best acting I think I've ever seen that dude do. And two, my favorite
Yeah.
comment about the money or about the movie is it'd be funny as a post credit scene if they showed it that the rest of the world was still normal, and it's just Australia is just chaos, and they have no idea. Like, it's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, the end of
yeah,
the
yeah,
world," but it's like, "No,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just Australia's just lost it."
Yeah, it's
And it's like, everything else is
just you
just
guys.
fine.
It's just you guys. No, no, everyone else is okay. No, we're fine. We're over here having tea and crumpets. It's fine. What's the matter with you guys? You want some gas? Anyway, no, I'm with you, mate. No, I'm with you. Anything else, mate? You've been watching, listening, reading, or whatever?
Only the one that and only the elephant in the room. What about
The
you?
elephant in the room, of course, being the Acolyte episodes 1 and 2. So I finished. I had very little time, as you can probably guess, over the last week. Finished races across the world. Again, not something I want to talk about normally as being particularly interesting, but they have been based in Asia Pacific, and I've enjoyed it because of what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be this time next year. The two young lads won it in the end, who I thought were really quite precocious and appeared very privileged at the very very beginning. But as the story, again, it's editing, it's what the
Yeah,
producers
yeah.
want you to see. The contest progressed over week on week, you realize that these two boys are actually extremely lucky to have each other as best friends, because they've both been through some relatively traumatic experiences and are really decent chaps. So I was really made up I was really made up that they won the contest. I watched Godzilla -1. So in the respite between um, the festival at the weekend and then flying out to Munich on Tuesday, Monday night, Lucy and I sat down and watched Godzilla -1, and I bloody loved it. It was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Loved every minute of it. It really did call back to the days of the original, the original Japanese
Mhm,
um films back in the, what were they, 60s, maybe 50s even. Anyway, point
mhm.
being, very very well done. I love the fact that it's all about society coping with the end of World War II, and Japan, most importantly its citizens, being particularly decimated and desperate
Mhm.
and trying to make a living, and then amongst that, being isolated from the rest of the world because no one will support them against the threat of this of this new threat that is Godzilla. I thought the effects were amazing, because I understand that they were done on a shoestring. You can kind of see it's been done on a shoestring, but what they
Yeah, yeah.
achieve is monumental. The way that they somewhat update the physicality of Godzilla, I think, is fantastic, especially around how his scales work. I'll leave it as that. I thought it was
Yeah.
brilliant. Lucy loved it. The only thing I would say is, don't do what we did. And it wasn't my choice, it was Lucy's choice. We tried to go with the English dub first, because we'd heard from friends that it's actually okay. Big mistake. Just go straight in with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the original audio with the subtitles, because there is something about Asian languages to English translation that is way too literal. It's
Mhm.
way, way too literal, and it comes over as being unsincere. No,
Insincere.
insincere.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it doesn't translate at all.
I didn't even know
Even
there
with
was
the
a dub.
best, yeah, yeah, no, there is, and if unless you take it off that dub, certainly in the streaming service over here, that would have been the default.
Mm.
Um, and we very, very quickly took it off because, like I said, it just ruins it because, yeah, literal translation is not a good thing. Anyway, that's that.
The
Still
in
watching
terms of the
Dark.
special
Sorry,
effects,
go on.
the special effects thing, it's like, you're talking about how it's done on a shoestring budget. Dude, I think that's what makes it. Like, that I think if it would have had, like,
Yeah,
top tier special effects, it would have just been it would have, I think, lost a lot of its character. But the fact that it was so there was a certain, almost like a frame rate look to it, where it's like there's just something
yeah,
that's a little bit not off, but it's different, and it's like it just made it that much better. Um, I don't know, it just gave it so much character, and I
yeah.
really like that about it. It was really cool.
Well, I've heard some of our friends. I mean, especially Chris and sorry, the guys over at Scruffy's as well, talk about it before, and they were talking about it's not about Godzilla. So I was kind of expecting Godzilla to have the occasional moment or so throughout the product, but he's there pretty much you know, albeit short lived, but pretty much all the way through the film. But they're absolutely right, and it's all about the suffering of the people and really where they are at this moment in time. Godzilla is a shit, an absolute shit. He's not, the savior of humanity in this movie, and I just, but he's also not the problem. It's just powerful. I mean, anything that can be about something, but it really is more of a reflection on us as people. It's
Mhm.
good storytelling, which actually is very, very convenient segue to what we're going to talk about next. But anyway, um, still watching Dark Matter, although I haven't seen another episode in the last week because I've been a little bit busy with stuff. And that's pretty much it, mate. But I don't think that's too bad, bearing in mind we've been relatively busy this week,
Not at all.
which really takes us on to uh, the um, the main event of this week, which was that we got to see the
Brrrr.
first two episodes. We got to see the first two episodes of the Acolyte, and I have to say, my friend, I really like it.
Hey-oh. I could hear myself
Um,
through your headphones, back through your microphone, and into mine. That was awesome.
yeah,
Sorry if
yeah,
I made you deaf.
yeah. Do you like that? No, it's fine. No, 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 no. I'm rather. I've been thinking about that on the plane on the way back today. I'm thinking, yeah,
Oh,
that's
don't
going to be
worry.
our title
Don't worry.
today.
I've got one. I'll share mine with you because I have one too. Don't worry.
Go on.
We've complained. Mine needs a little bit of setup. I was going to work it into conversation, but I was gonna drop it now. We complained about the like some of the Star Wars animation things, but being so dark. But this one's quite Acco bright.
Ooh,
It hurts.
ooh,
It hurts.
ooh. God, we're good. We're really good. Anyway, no, so listen. To give context, we are recording a day later than we normally are. I have not been in the country. I have not been around most things. Even if I wanted to, I've unfortunately been away from social media, an awful lot of social media, because I literally have had no ability to access it in the last couple of days. So I've been put in quite a good position in that I haven't seen much of the response from the internet, and we'll go into that a little bit later because I've got no idea whether people like it or loathe it. But I have to say, bearing in mind, this was one of those Star Wars events that an awful lot of people were looking forward to, but I wasn't. I'm looking forward to every single Star Wars event, but I'm not into the high force stuff. I'm not into the force law stuff. I'm really up for the everyman story, which is the reason why my favorite characters are typically non Jedi or non Sith. Despite that, I really liked it. I really, really enjoyed it. Has it blown my socks off at the moment? No, it hasn't blown my socks off. However, looking at looking at it objectively, my first impressions of the first two episodes are I'm getting Andor vibes. And I'm not in any way talking about the content. I'm not in any way talking about the writing. I'm talking about the feeling that I have about this production, should we say, compared to other productions that we've had recently. And what I mean by that is it's about the story,
Good writing.
and it just so happens to be in a Star Wars universe.
Hmm.
So we'll go into details later on, but and yes, an awful lot of it is around the revenge, the revenge on the Jedi, but the revenge on the Jedi, on the Jedi, which are a very Star Warsy thing, but it could be anything. They could be cops,
Yeah.
they could be teachers, they could be anyone in a position of authority that someone has a problem with and is looking to wreak their revenge by being a very very programmatic serial killer. I get that. And then you dunk it in the Star Wars universe. I get those vibes again, and that's the last time I felt like that was with Andor, because it doesn't really matter about the ships, about the aesthetics, about anything else. The story is universal. It could be set in the 18th century. It could be set in the Stone Age, and that's what really impressed me, especially on the second look. Because the first look, I was on a plane, and I was watching it on my phone, despite being a reasonably decent sized screen. And then I came back, rushed back home today, and managed to watch it again for the second time on the big screen, and it's really good. It's really really good. It's not genre defying at the moment, but it's really good. It's a really really good start as far as I'm concerned. So everything to be positive about. That's my overall feeling at the moment.
I'm really enjoying it too. I I
You
think
fucking
you
shit.
I think I was just trying. I'm taking it all in. I'm taking in everything you were saying. It's like, all right, yeah, 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 yeah. I think there's a you mentioned something about like the kind of the storytelling and the story and how can you can kind of paint it. I think that's a fundamental thing that you notice in a lot of really good storytelling. It's that you start with a good like structure and story, and then you paint
Yeah.
it in the shade of Star Wars instead of the other way around. When you try to do it the other way around, you try to bring it's like, all right, writing a Star Wars story, and we got to have lightsabers. We got to have this. I think that's not to go down this rabbit hole, but I think that's how you end up with Rise of Skywalker. It's like you're trying to solve all these problems and this, but this is the other way around. It's like, yeah, they could just not be Jedi, and who cares? Like it's the story still fits. It's because you've come up with a good
Yeah.
story and a good structure, and now you adapt it to the universe of Star Wars and say, okay, they're Jedi, and now these things can change, and this and this and this. I do have an inkling that we're going to get into some like Force lore stuff as we continue,
Oh, I'm sure of
but
it.
but
I'm
but I
sure of
think
it.
but where we're at so far is my high level is like, dude, I'm loving it. Like it's different. It's got a different look and feel. I love it. Mine's a little bit different. I've also not been on social media, so I don't really know or care what the masses think. And I think I'm going to do that for this whole show. Because I didn't even know there was any kind of discourse, which we'll talk about in a little bit, until like this morning when hear some of our friends kind of talking about it, like just high level. Like I don't know what people are mad about, but people are obviously
Yeah.
mad about something. But it's like I just don't care. And like the fact that I wasn't even aware
No.
of it, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to try to do this whole show without engaging. Because there's times like I'm guilty of it. I'll go on and be like, let's see what stupid stuff's in the comments, and just see what people are mad about, and like roll my eyes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm not even going to do that because you know what? I really enjoyed those first two episodes. I love the look and feel. I'm very open. Uh, I'm excited to see where it goes. Like, the one thing I did see, I've heard people talk about it like, oh, because I've had this queued up in my head ever since like last night. They're like, oh, it's too bright. It's
Yeah.
not Star Wars. It's not dingy enough. I'm like, and my immediate response to that is, it's like, okay, so we live in modern times, but we are okay going to the movie theater and watching Mad Max, where it's post
Too
apocalyptic, things
bright.
are worse, and it's dulled down because things in the universe get worse, on Earth get worse, and we're okay with that. But we're not okay with things being bright in Star Wars in the past and then getting worse through the Empire and things dulling down. It's like it's the same thing, but we're just shifting the time frame.
But
So I don't
there's
understand why people are like not okay with like things being bright. It's like, oh, it's too colorful. It's like it's a different
Yeah, but
time. I
you
love
said
it.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I'll talk a little bit about the aesthetic later on, but that's actually um quite insane.
Well, they're just
That
digging.
that
They're
kind of
looking for
thinking.
stuff.
It's like you set a tone depending on the ambience you're trying to create. And at the end of the day, while I don't know anything about I didn't know about this, mate. So apologies for coming out with opinions raw. But ultimately, my understanding is that, and we spoke about a little bit about this with Josh and the team. Last week is that this shit is the height. This show is the height of the Jedi. This is the height of the Jedi. So it's a golden age. It's a golden age, and so therefore it is
Mhm.
bright. It is shiny, and so while the golden age probably will be around things that you can't physically see, like the economy is great, like people are happy and that they've got full stomachs and that their investments go further and all that kind of stuff that you don't see. You kind of replicate that kind of good feeling vibe with ultimately visual cues. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker, but even I'm not that stupid to realize that that's that's the kind of ambience that you're trying to create. It is the the High Republic. It is
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
best that the best of times, and so therefore you dial up the tone a little bit. It's it- I don't understand. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm spending too
and
much time. The
and
the irony is that one of the reasons why I've stayed away from social media is obviously I've been away, but I also don't have to think about explaining why things are done a certain way. I mean, I find
yeah,
myself. I mean, I'm never responding to those kind of things anymore. I got burnt a long, long time ago on social media, which is the reason why I'm not particularly prolific on social media by daring to respond to somebody with rational thought. And I got burnt, and I'll never ever do that again. Which is the reason why I'm relatively obscure or certainly anonymous. But you know, the, I don't want to have to go through the hassle of you know having 8 weeks, 8 episodes. So sorry, 7 weeks, 7 weeks of picking up on this kind of stuff, and then reviewing it, and then thinking to myself, actually, I'm okay with that because what it means is this. I don't want to have that hassle
yeah.
of justifying it in my head. And so, unlike yourself, I'll probably stay away from an awful lot of it.
Well, it just reminds me of the before times, like, before I got super invested in it, and it's like, back when I could just watch it, and I could just
Yeah,
enjoy it, and then, like and have that
yeah,
time, like, it's like that me time with the content, and just, like, really take it all in, and then, like, you don't fall in love with it immediately. No, you never do. You never, like, watch something
no,
as you're watching, like, "I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love, 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 love." Like, you enjoy it, but then, like, you really don't like, you need time to it's like eating. Like eating it's eating food. It's like
yeah,
eating a
yeah,
brownie. It's like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat this cookie." It's like, "Oh, it tastes so good." It's like, "No," but then, like, the more time you get to think about it, the better it gets, but, like, social media is just, like, right there in your face, so it's like, "I think I'm gonna do this whole series without it," because it just reminds me of when I was younger, and I could watch something and
yeah,
just have
yeah, yeah.
time to just enjoy it, but yeah, all that screw the social media stuff. In terms of the show, the I got there's a major vibe I got. I'm kinda getting about, like, the story. I won't dive too far into it, but it's like, it gives me have you seen the movie Memento?
Yeah. Oh my god, yes, I have.
It
And I
reminds
was
me
trying to,
it
I
reminds
was
me of that,
trying
where it's
so
like
hard. Yeah, 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 yeah. I was trying so hard to think of something that I've seen that reminds me of it. I've got a different analogy, but I love that. I love that,
eh
mate. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
minus the forgetfulness, like the short-term memory issues, it's like but it's that story
Yeah,
structure. It feels like that story structure where it's like, okay, you're seeing the aftermath, but you don't know why we're here, and then we're gonna piece that, and it's gonna
yeah,
slowly work back, and then we're gonna get the conclusion in the end. It's like it feels very much like that, and I love that storytelling style. I think Memento killed it with the way they did it, but it just feels very reminiscent of that. So I
yeah.
know, like, I thought it was hilarious what happened to Carrie Ann Moss, like, basically because of the Scruffy show, like, their prediction
Oh,
show. I thought
mate, I
that's
loved it.
I was laughing the whole time. I was
I,
like, "This is awesome." Um, but that's what made me trigger
sorry,
the going back in
sorry.
time thing.
Rather than pick up on it later on, and repeat what you're saying, I don't. My only concern about this show, because I had no idea what to expect, so I went in with open eyes, and just dived in with both feet. Um, the only concern I had was the idea of was Carrie Ann Moss's role, and I said that last week to Josh and to Catherine, was that, and while it's going to be cool, Space Trinity would be cool. Would the show become a meme to serve an actor's brand as opposed
Mhm,
to serve the serve the story? And it's the one and single thing that I was worried about. And I love her. I honestly, I adore that woman. She's
mhm,
done so much, really, really good work. And there's an awful lot of her serious stuff that doesn't ever get the light of day, or sorry,
mhm.
doesn't get the accolades that it should do. Um, but her to be killed off after all the build up of her role in the marketing, stroke of genius, absolute stroke of genius, and I love it. And it's also, for someone like me, and my concerns that I had with her role in this show and taking over the point of the story would be lost. It's basically Space Trinity with lightsabers. I thought was absolutely perfect, and I loved it, and I was pleasantly surprised because I did not read any social media. So when I watched it yesterday, albeit on my phone, I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, it's not quite a Brad Pitt and Deadpool kind of situation, um, but it is. I mean, we know there's going to be more of her. Like if it follows that Memento thing, it's like we're going to see what happened and why she's pissed, um,
Yeah,
we're going to get more of that. But I do appreciate that it's not a Space Trinity like type cast.
yeah.
It's like nope. Here she is, ding dong, and she's gone. I loved it too. I just laughed. I'm like, yes, that's awesome. Let's go. Um,
I mean, she'll
on
be back because
yeah,
essentially the story of those four Jedi, that is the story. It's nothing about the listen, let's crack on, mate, because I love that this has completely twisted my perceptions of what we will be watching. I love the way that they've played this so far.
I love that
Keep
I
going,
love
mate.
that they're showing the humanity of the Jedi and like we're about to see some real. Well, first of all, the fact that there was a serious topic that Torben tackled, that was wild. Like we're in a definitely we're in a different level of Star Wars, and we're
Yeah,
seeing the humanity, we're seeing the tortured side of things. We're seeing that Jedi aren't. I think there's a lot of times where Star Wars fans will take on this belief that like that it's black and white, good and evil. Jedi are perfect, and
yeah,
like I think people really struggle with the hubris, just even the hubris concept of like why the fall of the Jedi happened. But
yeah,
then, but this is like oh, you struggle with that. Well, we're about to amp that up to 11. We're gonna have you're already seeing tinges of people and people who've read the High Republic books are already kind of familiar with some of it, but we're already seeing tinges of things of like maybe things aren't they're not great. But they're not Sith, they're not bad guys, they're not red lightsaber bad guys who are just out slaughtering people. But you can do something and regret it and have that guilt and carry it forever. And you can see the different ways people are approaching it or not or addressing
well,
it. And
I think there are massive cues to that throughout
yeah.
the first, particularly the first episode, of the pomposity of the Jedi at that moment in time.
Hmm.
This is the golden age, and what comes with any kind of golden age is arrogance.
Hmm.
It's comfort. We get flabby, we get fat, we get overfamiliar, we get entitled when when we're going through good times. I mean, from the very very, I'm kind of breaking the list that I've pulled together for us on the plane. Funny enough, um, um, but the fact that they dress in flamboyant robes,
Hmm.
um, that for me was off-putting. I had seen it before on a comic book cover, but it's a comic book. It's a little bit like you see the Marvel, you see the Marvel comic books, and you see that then translated or somewhat muted down, so the
Hmm.
vibrance of the whole thing is dialed down for real action, for live action. But I saw, when those first two guys, folks turn up to um, to take on to
OSHA.
arrest OSHA. Um, they look pompous as hell, and
Yeah.
that really threw me for a little bit. And subsequently I've seen more photographs and behind the scenes and the amazing work that went into those robes and that. But it's kind of like this is almost the opposite of how I saw the Jedi. The Jedi wore very meager, very beaten up, very almost like monks in that they wear the robes of a monk are meant to demonstrate humility, and to be I wouldn't say poor, but to be functional, and not flamboyant. Which is what we see in modern day and certainly ancient religion up until now. And then seeing this kind of pomposity of these amazingly well embroidered tunics and cloaks is like, what's this about? Don't get me wrong, I love it, and I also blame George for an awful lot of this confusion anyway in my
Yeah.
brain,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
course
Yeah.
what he did was he turned Tatooine clothing that Obi-Wan was wearing that looked very similar to what Uncle Uncle Owen was wearing in Star Wars, and made them the Jedi garb. But the point being is that, going back to my point, is that it's a very, very different time, and the demeanor of the Jedi, with the exception of one or two, is very confident. Again, very arrogant, especially the youngsters. Um,
Well,
they're overly confident. They know what they're doing, or
well,
they believe they
it
know
feels
what they're
very
doing.
much it feels very much like modern day, kind of like small government, big business. Even
Yeah,
some in some countries, you have like the like authoritarian kind of like police or military, where it's this I think the big business, small government kind of thing reminded me like when Vanestra was saying things like, do I have your support in this? Like, hey, like we can't afford it's all political. Like we can't afford to do the right thing or like go down proper paths. Like we're already, we're fractured and we're vulnerable, that's the word. We're vulnerable, and so we all need to, band together
yeah,
to, like, just brush this under the rug or whatever, so it's like, "Ooh, I've been in situations like this. This feels like big business." And then there's, like, the kind of the
yeah,
boots on the ground side of things where it's like Yord and Jecki, mainly Yord, where it's like, we are right, like, that belief, that firm belief in what you are the hand that is providing justice and everything like that gut instinct of everything I do is correct. My gut instinct is correct. My actions are correct. And there is bad and there is good. The bad
yeah.
people are obvious. There is no nuance. And we see a lot of that in modern times in a lot of ways. And so I think it's very
Yeah,
interesting
yeah,
to see
yeah. No,
how they're going
absolutely,
to shape these characters
absolutely.
and flesh us out.
It's 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 quite interesting though that we've got this flamboyance of the Jedi in terms of their attire, um, happening now. We've got them talking about their political enemies or their political rivals, and yet 100 years later they're a little bit more dour. They don't want to get involved in politics, and yet they still retain that hubris in that they believe that they're doing the right thing. So I find the whole thing fascinating. I really do. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that
I mean, as somebody
we
who
could go
grew
on
up
for hours
Catholic,
on this stuff.
I agree. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so it's like it just
Yes,
reminds me of the priesthood. It's
yes,
like you'll have some time
yeah, yeah,
frames
no,
where it's
absolutely.
gold sashes, things like that. Then you'll have somebody else come in and they're just and they set the tone. They set the
It's
tone for
almost like
who's underneath them.
yeah, it's almost like within 100 years they move from Catholicism to um, the Jesuit spin-off. Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Where
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you know they wore very, very humble. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's that's a really good analogy actually. A few things that I picked up on was I love the intro text, and planet names are back, which is nice. I always like a nice
yeah.
reference to a planet name. Um, I've already mentioned that I love the fact that Carrie Ann Moss' character is killed off, but I do believe she'll be back because I think the tone of my expectation, sorry, the tone of the season has changed significantly to what I thought it would be. So my preconceptions are completely
Mhm.
wrong. Um, Couple of things here that I picked up in sequential order was that May, reaching out for the saber twice, not only with the two fights that she had with, should we say, active Jedi, she reached out to the saber twice. It made me think, what's going on there? And believe me, I've not listened to anyone at the moment, but I don't know what she's been. I don't understand that. Why is she reaching for the saber when she's already got weapons of her own, albeit only blades? And the only thing I can think of is that you very kindly gave me access. I've read some of the Vader comments recently, and
Mm.
there's a challenge that Vader has in to earn his late in the very basically after Order 66. He's given the challenge by Palpatine to earn his lightsaber, and he can't just build it. He's got to steal it in combat from a
Mhm.
Jedi without any kind of tools of his own, um, or sorry, any weapons of his own, and then has to change um, sort of bleed. They call it bleed, don't
Bleed the
they? It's
crystal,
from the
yeah,
Ahsoka
yeah.
book. Bleed, yeah, bleed the crystal. That's the only thing I can think of, which kind of made me think, oh, that's quite smart. And even if I'm only guessing at it, um, the fact that they focused on two lightsabers, which at the time were sheathed or they were hung on the belt, the fact that she actually reached out to them twice, I thought that was quite interesting, and I think that's something to go by going forward.
I'll jump in on that one just as I have a high level thought. So my thought is much simpler than that, maybe less force lore, but more of I took it as it's part of the master's kind of plan of like you can't use light weapons against them. You can't use like force sensitive weapons. So it's more of her trying to take it away from
Yeah.
them because that's their only real
Oh,
true
I
defense that
see.
she can't get past. Like because Force
Okay.
Trinity cut him in half. So it's like if you can get it away from him, then it's just force powers versus force powers. And so
Got it.
and she can't use a lightsaber because then it's like, oh, it's a red lightsaber. We have Sith bad guys on our hands, but if now it's just this kind it's I think it's in order to sow
Yeah,
confusion in a lot of ways of like, how did they kill him? It's like, oh, she got stabbed with a
yeah.
throwing knife. And it's like, why did what how is this and I think it's all part of this game and juggle of like you have to maintain secrecy of who we are and also
Yeah.
maybe a little cat and mouse with the master and acolyte kind of thing too. That's kind of where my head was with it.
No, that's cool. I love that. I love that. I mean, mate, there's so much speculation here. And again, we're talking about force users, which I could kind of normally not worry about, but yeah, it's cool. So May's face tattoo, um, that's interesting, and that may well be at some point the only way that we can identify her against the sister going forward. She saves the bar owner. Um, so at the end, we see a shot after she's killed Space Trinity. She's at the bar picking up her missing or the dagger, and the bar owner's child is obviously holding on to his leg, and she shows mercy and spares them. And in fact, she shows an awful lot of vulnerability throughout the first episode, fear, in fact. Um, and while there is this driving desire for revenge, I can't help thinking she's not Sith. She's not Sith. She's something else. I'll explain this later on. It's just that I kind of, and maybe even the person she serves is not Sith either. And I don't have any theories, but it's just
So I'll let you get through your list, but I have a theory on why she did that.
she just she demonstrates empathy and fear and respect for the people that she's fighting. Um, which makes me think after she's killed the four, if that is indeed her end game, then there's nothing else to do and she can move on with her life. So the vengeance is short lived. I can't see it being life defining because of the way that her emotions are really, really apparent all the way through. Certainly, the first episode in particular.
I think she's being used for her
I
anger and
think you're
revenge.
right. I think you're right, and I think that there may well be a redemption story here. I could, but let's think about what the tone, or sorry, what the trope is for the season is later on. But there's a few other notes I made here. The Nemodians, they're less offensive. I mean, they're still nasty people, and they've clearly got an accent of some sort. But I think they did a really good job in making them a little bit less offensive than perhaps the way that they were portrayed. And when I mean less offensive, I'm not talking about the way they were portrayed in the Phantom Menace to as an
The
alien species. I'm
stereotypes.
talking about as in the stereotypes that we used at the time. I love the alien face hugger concept being used as a means to calm down aggressive inmates or nasty people. I love that. I love that concept. And it was, it wasn't particularly clever, but I thought, yeah, nice touch. Um, the one of the things about OSHA is that she's clearly lost her powers. So she's clearly at some point respected by her master and by other people as well. When the prison ship goes down, she can't pull Pip, her, by the way, rather wicked um, Game Boy Game Boy droid to her.
Mhm.
She's clearly lost her powers in some way, and she has to rely on the momentum or the movement of the ship going down in order to do that. I'll finish this page that I'm on at the moment. Again, I had to go manual, mate. I had to go old school because I was on a
Ah, dang,
plane.
man.
Um, I know. Pad and paper. Sorry, paper and pen. But I've got here some of the aesthetics things that I thought of when I was watching it. The sabers are very fat,
Mhm.
um, but I'm all right with that because it reminds me of. Bearing in mind, it's meant to be influenced by the High Republic or indeed the old days. It
Mhm.
reminded me. Did you ever play the New Republic MMO?
I did.
Star Wars: The New Republic MMO. It's still available today. The
Right.
sabers in there are really fat. They're really, really fat, and it may well be, that the over the years they get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, as with most technology. But I thought they seemed proportionately quite big. Um, I thought the ship porn was really good. I thought you'd be happy with that. The ship porn looked
Mhm.
really, really good. I identified three vehicles, three ships, maybe. The Nemodian cruiser that she was working on as a deckhand or a whatever. I can't remember what they called her, but that ship would look pretty good, and it looked quite a good aesthetic. Actually, it looked like it would fit in with a Nemodian cruiser. The big circular ship they take down in Phantom Menace. Um, I thought that really, and then there was the Jedi fighter, and then of course there was the Jedi prison ship, all of which I thought
The
looked
Jedi
really, really
Vector was cool
sweet.
to see in live action. That was cool to see that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I don't know what you mean, but yeah, it looked really, really good. And in fact, the prison ship, sorry, was the Vector the ship that Soul uses later on as well? Is that his ship?
I don't remember what he flew, but the Vector is what they're on the Nemoidian ship when Jecki and Yord came to originally arrest her. It's like the real long, spindly looking one. It almost looks like a wasp or a gnat, uh,
So
kind of flying around.
I'm talking about the one that really impressed me, and I've made a few comments about it. Was the one later on in the first episode, which basically the nose of it detached when they went to go and pick up OSHA from the planet. It kind of arrived from hyperspace and the nose detached, which reminded me a little bit of the old docking ring from the Jedi Starfighter. But obviously, it's
Mhm.
a bigger ship with all of the crew on board. I thought that looked particularly sick and very Star Wars.
Yeah, I like
Is that what you're
the
talking
shit.
about? Is that
No, I'm talking about the fight, the real skinny fighter that came in. Like a Vector's a like
Oh,
almost like
okay.
a single seat or two seat fighter, real long, real spindly, and it was only there for a brief second. But on in terms of the ship porn, I liked it too because I also liked how they showed they didn't just lean on the same. So it's really early. It's 100 years or whatever before, and so they showed different types of technology where maybe things are less efficient and more bulky and weird. Like the engines look kinda they're not as, like, blue and thin and streamlined as they
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
in later Star Wars. I don't know, I just thought it looked things look heavy. They look like they need exhaust vents, and they're less efficient. I thought that was really cool. I think it was, like, the
It's
prison
funny you
ship
should
had,
say
like,
that.
those radiators and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because I felt the opposite at
Mhm,
certain times. So, for example, um, I mean, you knew I had a great time with Ahsoka. I loved Ahsoka. I thought it was
mhm.
great because I didn't see what an awful lot of other people. I just saw it as the romp that it was meant to be, which was basically a sequel to the Rebel series, and loved it. And then there was new stuff in there that I really, really did love. So I didn't particularly take it seriously. But one thing that didn't land well with me was the EV suit that Ahsoka had. You know, with the soft
Yeah,
headpiece that kind of accommodated her tendril, her tentacles, or whatever you want to call it, her, her Veku, or whatever they are. Anyway, point being is that this time round, the EV suit looked genuine, looks actually solid. It looked like it served a purpose rather than a lot less fantastical. However, the boots still look very Star Trek. And I always
yeah,
think of when I think of Star Trek, I think of you know nanotechnology. I think of everything being really small, really efficient, and everything. Um, and yet, I felt that while the suit looked cool, the boots were kind of like that doesn't fit. In my humble opinion, it wasn't analog enough to fit in this universe. The same goes for what I thought was actually quite a good thing, which was the idea of the droid chairs. You know,
yeah,
the droids that are piloting the ship, you know, fold down to become a place to for pilots
yeah.
or for organic pilots to sit. And I like the idea, but it was like, oh, it's a little bit again, it's a little bit Star Trek for me as opposed to Star Wars. It's more digital versus analog. However, if I think about the way that it was positioned, the OT versus the prequels, you saw in the prequels a very gleaming, a very white, a very technologically advanced culture.
Mhm.
And then when it came to the OT, mainly because of budget reasons, but they did it masterfully. People are making do, and it is a lot more analog. We also saw that in obviously in Andor as well, with some of the kit that was being used by the rebels then. So I'm okay with it, but it was like it's almost like by the time we get to let's say the end of the end of Return of the Jedi, the whole galaxy has gone backwards when it comes down to technological advancement a little bit. But no, I was okay with it, but it just one of those little nitpicky things I like to pick up
Well,
on.
that's I wanna jump in there and, say something about the boots. The boots are something that always bug me too, and I think that's a trope I'd love to see go away, of the LED indicator on the boots of when they're magnetized. Every movie does that, and it's like, they don't need an indicator. That would not like, especially if the user can't see it, it's like, "Are my boots magnetized? Oh, I can't lift my foot, so therefore they are." It's like,
Yeah,
it's so silly. I liked the suit too because it reminded me of, like, the really old submarine or not submarine, um, like, subsuits, like, where they bolt it on, they
yeah,
screw you
yeah,
in, and
yeah,
you're in a big
yeah,
metal suit, the mech neck things.
yeah,
And to clarify my previous comment about, like, the ships looking chunkier, the engines look less efficient, but they definitely don't look as
yeah,
rough as
yeah,
like the original trilogy because they all still have their panels on. So it definitely had more
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
engine guards with vent holes in them. So it's like, oh yeah, that stuff is gonna like get taken off and it becomes a lot leaner and more efficient in the future. That I just wanted to clarify for anybody who's like, it actually looks slick. It's like it's more like the prequel Y wing versus uh original trilogy Y wing, where it's like it's the same kind of shit, but they just took the panels off because they don't care about style
Yeah.
anymore.
No, I'm with you.
That kind of
I'm
stuff.
with you, mate. Um, the temple. The temple. We got to see Coruscant, which is ace,
Hmm.
and the temple's a lot smaller than it will be,
Hmm.
which was I found interesting. And it took the second time round to actually notice, because of course you're so familiar with that view of the the Coruscant vista, and then you've got the temple, and it's half the size, which I found fascinating. I found that absolutely fascinating. Um, One of the things that in that very same sequence, um, you've got the Jedi that are interrogating the prisoners from the or the people that escaped from the prison ship, and Sol is the first person to interrogate the guy using his Jedi mind powers to establish the truth.
Hmm.
It's like, well, you're surrounded by Jedi. Why did it take him to do that? Why didn't somebody ascertain what happened before Sol turned up? But anyway, again, that's a nitpick, and it was a plot. It was a plot. It moved the plot forward, so I was okay with that. What I loved is that I don't know if I talked about it on our pod or whether I talked about it. I think I definitely spoke about it on Star Wars Spelt Out. Was that the trailer showed Osha pleading her innocence to the point where it was amazingly good acting and really, really convincing. And I made the point that something else is going on there. Maybe she doesn't know she's doing this stuff. Maybe she's being manipulated or being hypnotized. The fact that s- they didn't bother hanging on that mystery for any
Hmm.
more than 30 or 40 minutes, I thought was brilliant. And we found out very, very quickly that she's got a twin sister. So it, I felt somewhat, I felt a little bit good that I kind of guessed something else was up there and it wasn't maybe her. And if it was her, she's not in her right mind. But the fact that they addressed it relatively quickly, I thought was kind of good. Um, I love um, the guy. He's a real twat. He's a pompous twat. He's a is it Yord? He's the new Jedi.
Yeah.
He's been a Jedi for 2 years. He's the companion. He's trying to do really well to look fit. And I work with people like this, so I really appreciate it. Someone that's been put in a position of responsibility that's trying really hard to look like they're doing a really good job, and ultimately they got a really good heart, but they're just going through that informative stage of being in a new pair of trousers, shall we say? And I love that, and I don't have a problem with him at all. And you can see by his mannerisms that he loves Osha, but most what made me laugh the most is that Sol's Padawan, who is of course
Jackie.
I'm trying to remember. Yes, who for me stole the show.
Hmm.
Um, is basically ruling him. Is basically pushing him around. I think it's
Yeah.
hilarious that he's the Jedi, she's the Padawan, and yet she's kind of telling him how to do his job properly. And I thought that was absolutely wonderful. Um, one thing that really landed from an emotional point of view, the look on Sol's face when he meets Osha for the first. They have that kind of moment where she's teetering on the edge of the cliff, and she falls backwards, and he saves her, and then they meet for the first time, and there's a whole bunch of accusations against her, and she's saying it's not me, and the fact that he doesn't even care about it at the moment in time, he just looks at her in the face and smiles, and that really got to me. It
Hmm.
almost like it doesn't matter what you've done, it doesn't even matter if it is you. I'm so happy to be with you, and I love you a great deal, and That I thought was absolutely amazing, and good choice in casting the guy. Um, and absolutely amazing. Yeah, there's a couple of other things I picked up on. I think that my assumptions towards this series are completely wrong. I thought it would be all about identifying. We joked about it last week, the Phantom Menace. But who is behind all of this? I don't think it's about that. I think it's about bringing the truth as to what happened at the time that May and Osha were separated. There's something happened there. Um, Something happened there that was traumatic. That the Jedi themselves, despite how exalted they feel that they are, or that they are, or they behave, are responsible for. And I think that is the story. I felt that while you talked about Memento, that which is a lot better analogy than I had. I was thinking of the Murder on the Orient Express, and if you remember the story of the Murder on the Orient Express, everyone had a hand in the killing. Essentially, everyone had a vendetta against the person they killed. And while I'm not suggesting that in any way the four Jedi had a vendetta, or had anything particularly a reason for doing whatever we find out they did. They're playing a cover up game at the moment, and all of them are responsible in one way or another. I think your example was a lot better than mine, by the way. Excuse me. And that's pretty much it. Apart from, excuse me. Apart from thinking about the word acolyte and what it means, and the fact that we haven't had an acolyte. Well, we've had. Would we would we would we consider a Sarge Ventress an acolyte for Dooku, for example, or was she an apprentice or a trainee for Dooku? The fact that we're thinking about the word acolyte, and maybe all of us are thinking of this as there is a Sith behind this. And I've been thinking the same thing up until now, which is the reason why I suggested during the Scruffies that perhaps everyone that finds out or knows of the Sith is killed, which keeps Kiadi's theory about the whole thing sound for the Phantom Menace. And I'm just wondering, but I'm also thinking to myself, what is an acolyte? An acolyte is a follower. Maybe it's some sort of reverse Church of the Force, that is being built at this moment in time that brings back the Sith. But these aren't actually Sith people, and they're all acolytes. So the guy that we see on the coast, on the rock, speaking to May at the end of the first episode, he talks about the power of the acolyte destabling the belief or the dream that is the Jedi. Maybe he's recruiting more acolytes, and between them, they bring back the Sith. And actually, the Sith is not the immediate danger; it's the people that are trying to bring that back. And I could be talking complete nonsense, but I don't know. It's just these little signals, like May's compassion, like May's emotion, make me think that it's not black and white Sith versus Jedi here. Does that make sense? Are
It
you with me?
does. Yeah, it does. It does make sense. I think there's. I was never in the boat of like, oh, they're all Sith. I do think my current standing is I think the master is probably Sith. But I don't think that May is anywhere close to it. I think she's being used. It may not even be like the true master. That could be a rule of two, the an apprentice even. But I don't think May is in any way, shape, or form a a Sith at all. Because my theory on what's happened is that what May has always been troubled. There was a fire that broke out or whatever that killed that there was an issue on that planet on whatever it was called where all the four of them were, and there was a lot of destruction. And I believe my current belief is what happened was the Jedi came and tried to arrest May or like bring her in, with one of them being an overzealous leader and knowing May's reputation as being a troublemaker or whatever it is. And
Hmm.
I bet her parents or somebody stepped in to stop it and got killed or hurt. Um, and
Well,
then
there's
a cover up ensued that was like they killed other people, or more people got killed, and then they separated them, and I bet they wiped. And then I think they separated the two of them, and that's where like, oh, May's dead. I bet there was one of those four who's like especially bad, and they're like kind of like Vernestra was in the thing. She's like, we got to do
yeah,
what we got to do to cover all this up. An accident happened, and then those four were on board, and then separated, and they were like, May's dead, she's gone, whatever. And then
yeah,
Asha came to the temple, and they're like, "Oh, May did this. May burned the village. May killed everybody. All this stuff happened, but
yeah,
really it was a bunch of accidents." And then now May is pissed and being used by this master to hunt the people who are responsible for what happened, for what truly happened. And that's why Torben did what he did, because he feels the guilt. We'll see what Kelnaka's dealt with. Master Soul, I'm interested to see what his role in this was. And I bet Darth Trinity was, or Jedi Trinity was maybe one of the ringleaders of it, because she seemed to be the most
yeah. You could
upset,
be right.
the most vengeful. She's like, "Oh, it's you. Like, what are you doing here? Like, I thought you were dead. You're a
Well, don't
problem." Like,
forget. No, 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 no. Don't forget. She probably thought that she was talking to. Don't forget. She probably thought she was talking to OSHA, and we know that in the course of the first episode that Carrie Ann Moss was actually one of the Jedi that told Soul to get rid of her. So when she saw her face to face, she probably wasn't assuming it was May that was dead. There's two things going on here, mate. Um, the first being someone knew both kids were still alive, and I don't think Soul did, but someone knew both. I cannot believe everyone assumed that the evil one was dead and that the good one was alive in
I
inverted
think it's
commas.
Saul. I
So
think
that's the
Saul was
first thing.
supposed to. I think Saul was supposed to kill May or take care of it, and he didn't, and he let her go.
Maybe, maybe. And the second point I want to make is that one thing I wrote down actually, and I didn't want to entertain it because I thought I bet you the bro boys are going to get all over this, and I really don't want to. I don't want to entertain it. But they talked about the girls' mothers in plural, and I thought I naturally came to the conclusion, oh, it's same sex marriage, or same sex parental situation that's on at the moment. Move on. But maybe we're talking about dark witches. Maybe we're talking about dark witches. Has that ever
We
occurred?
could,
Did you ever?
we could, but
Is that an option?
I feel like it muddies the water. I would be disappointed because I feel like it muddies the water and the simplicity of it. Like, now
I
we're into
agree. I
that,
agree.
like that green smoke. It's like, oh, they're actually they're actually clones, and they're not real. Because so Darth, or like, I keep calling her Darth Trinity. Trinity knew it was May when she saw her tattoo, scar, or whatever that
Yeah.
is on her forehead, and that's when she ignited the lightsaber. So it's like, to me, that was like, shit, you're still alive. Like, I'm not playing nice anymore. You're supposed to be dead. You are our problem because you know what really happened.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like if it became like Night Sister stuff, that's where it just gets like, because she didn't kill the bartender because the kid was there, and it's like, that's what she went through. She was a kid, and people forced
Yeah.
people killed her parents in front of her while she was begging them not to, and she wasn't about to become the very thing that she hated. And so but then Trinity's there, and it's she would have been Trinity herself. She just killed Trinity for doing that exact same thing. And that's kind of the cyclical loop. And if it becomes like Darth like or Night with sisters or witches, then it just kind of throws this whole like spiritual or force loop into it instead of it just being innocent people, normies
Yeah.
per se, who are just slaughtered by those who can't, slaughtered by those who can. Um, because then it's like, oh, it's witches versus Jedi. Okay, why didn't you defend yourself with your
Yeah,
witch
you
magnet?
get
It's
you
like it's like
then
ah,
yeah, you then get into a massive, it ends up being less about the story and more about the pew pews and the drama and the magnificence of it all. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It becomes less personable. No, I'm with you. I just picked up on it, and I hope it is something as simple as the twins were daughters to a same sex marriage. You know that which is absolutely fine. But I'm sure there are already folk out there that are having a nightmare with it. Um, what do you think of? There's two questions I've got for you. What do you think of the acting? Did anyone stand out as being a bit of a fave for you at the moment? And then I was going to ask you, what do you think happens next?
I mean, I think Jackie's my favorite character right now. Um, their their acting is the only I think in May Osha. It's like that's I think that goes without saying. It's like
Yeah.
the fact that it's the same person, but when you see them, like the face and everything about it, it's so she does so well at being 2 different characters, and it's like there's times where I'm like, "Is it the same person? Is it like?" And I know it is. I know
Mm.
logically, and I know there's other like film tricks you can do, but it's like the acting is so unique and different for each one of those characters. I
Mm.
thought it's really good, but Jackie's my favorite just because it feels so effortless. Like, yeah, you're the only one in like whole head to toe or head makeup, but it feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. I like Master Saul too. Um, but
Yeah.
Jackie, I think Jackie's my favorite
Yeah.
character. May is the best acting. What about you? What's your standouts?
Well, first of all, I was going to. I'm being really controversial, so I don't care because I'm tired. Um, let's face it, Star Wars is Star Wars. It's never been renowned for Oscar-winning performances
Mhm,
at the best of times, but I do think that the performances here are pretty damn amazing. And like I
mhm.
said, my standout acting moment this week was when Soul was reunited after saving uh, Osha. I thought it was absolutely just the kindness and love in his face, and that little smile he gave her was just like it's like everything's okay, everything's okay, and it's
Mhm,
the kind of smile that I would like to think that I give my girls,
mhm,
without getting emotional. It's a kind of reassuring smile. It's like I don't care what you've done, I don't care what you've been through. I'm here and I'm here to help and protect you. And I just thought that was ace. However, despite that, um, I thought that in particular, our friend, I'm trying to find out, Daphne Keane.
mhm.
Uh, so, like you, Jackie, I thought she was freaking awesome. I love her matter of factness. I love the fact that she's beating on our boy. Um, and I've got to give kudos to him, to I'm trying to remember his name, Charlie Barnett, who plays Yord. His reaction and his response to her, I think is absolutely fantastic. However, the one that left me with so much intrigue was probably I think his name is pronounced Manny. Is it Jacinto?
Jacinto, Manny
Who
Jacinto.
plays
Yeah.
Jacinto? Sorry, yeah, who plays Kumir?
Mhm.
Um, he may well just be a scoundrel. He may well just be a scoundrel, a little bit like
He countered something with the
I'm trying to
Force.
think.
If I remember correctly, in episode 2, he stopped her when she was attacking him. He stopped her with like I thought I could have sworn he used the Force to stop her somehow. I can't remember what he did. I'm like, oh shit, is he? Is he force sensitive? Because I
Well, I
thought she
haven't
was
finished
attacking
my
him. I thought he.
second.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't finished my second watch of episode 2 yet, and but after my there's something else going on there. And it may, like I said, it may well be just some really good acting, but he's playing this kind of Weasley character, and as we know, and I keep talking about it.
Is
Keep,
he the master? Do
well,
do 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 do.
well, is he the master? But or is he like her? Between them, are they trying to both of them impress the master? Because sometimes she talks about how impressed the master will be, and then he talks about how impressed the master will be. If he's only just a little weasel that's kind of like a smuggler or someone that is if you like her, I don't know, her keyboard guy, or a
Man in
that
the
is
chair.
her armorer. Yeah, the man in the chair. Um, I'm surprised that he cares as much as he does about what their master thinks, and so I don't know, mate. I don't know. Maybe he goes on his own missions, and she's the guy in the chair. I don't know yet. I don't know, but I find it quite intriguing, his role at the moment, and I'm interested to find out more about his story because I like the actor, and he's playing someone rather sleazy. And as I keep saying I suggested it to the Scruffies, and I also talked about it last week with the guys over at Star Wars Spelt Out, that I've got this gut feeling that the true threat is hiding in plain sight, and probably the least person or entity that we expect it to be. Be that someone that may well be within the Jedi Order. And let's face it, a few of the characters that we've seen that are ancillary, but part of the main story in the first two episodes, have been kind of a little bit like shysters, and haven't been particularly helpful and compassionate, or indeed other people that we'll get to know along the journey. However, the one person I'm really looking forward to, of course, is our new buddy, the Wookiee, that we saw a little bit of a snapshot, Kelnaka, because I'm a Wookiee guy. And so, getting to understand a little bit more about Kelnaka is something that I'm really excited about. Just more Wookiees in general, I think, erased because I, I think they rock. And of course, it means that Junus is coming back as well into the Star Wars family and getting to do his thing. So I'm looking forward to that next week. A little bit abrupt, the ending this week. Also, the second episode, in that we got to see what was going on with him. He seems to have put himself in some sort of self-imposed exile for some reason or other. And again, I do think it's something to do with the events of 10 years ago, which is why we may see well, there's two things here going on, which I found really, really strange. The first of all is that, while I appreciated it for obvious reasons, the fact that we've got Carrie Ann Moss being killed off in the first 10 minutes of the show was a bit weird when she's on the slate and part of the marketing material. Secondly, that we've seen Kelnaka as a fully fledged Jedi in his robes, and yet when we see him, he's living like a hermit and doesn't seem to be any kind of Jedi whatsoever. The fact that we saw, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, the guy that was in a trance for 10 years, Torbin, the second Jedi Master that was killed, or basically took his own life, out of some kind of grief or certainly regret for his own actions. I think we'll see all of these people again. And the
Hmm.
fact that Torbin looks like, or is made to seem like an aged guy, but is played by a very young actor. That's a really strange strange thing to do if they weren't going to use that character again in the future, again as a flashback. So we shall see. But apart from that, mate, yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. It's great. Like I said, it just so happens to be in Star Wars. It's a riveting yarn. What do you think? What are your predictions for the weeks? Well, for next week, let's say, but if not, the weeks ahead.
Um, I mean, obviously, I think we're going to be dealing with Kilnaka um, next week. I mean, I think to the Manny Jacinto stuff, I don't remember his character's name, but I mean, I think we're gonna slowly. I think the hide and play sign thing applies to him. I think he's either the master or he is the like an like the. I think he's the one pulling the strings. That's my Sean Hairbrain guess, but I think we're gonna get more of May kind of on a tear and get a little bit more information about what happened in the past, and I think it's gonna end up being Master Soul who's the only one left, um, and that's gonna put him in a bind. And it obviously, I think we're gonna start seeing the seeds of like strife between. I think maybe next week will end with the cliffhanger of excuse me, OSHA and Soul. Maybe her thinking maybe there's more to him. Maybe he had a bigger hand in the situation than than he let on, or in their original um there were because I mean he also saw her shoot and kind of miss when May was driving away, and so I think there's already like a tension there, and so I think that the tension's going to be flipped back the other way.
Yeah, you could be. Yeah, yeah, you could be. You could be right, and I hope it doesn't end with him. I don't hope it doesn't end with him being um ending himself as well. Sorry, him also at the end of season 2, for example, him being somehow disposed of, which is the reason why Kiadi and those guys end up with a completely justified reason to think that the Sith um have been out of touch for over a millennia. But yeah, we'll see, mate. Um, from my perspective, I think that, like I said earlier on, I think that there is a different story to be told here than I thought. I think it's less about the emergence of the dark side, be it Sith, be it something different like a church. In fact, on that point, the reason why I thought it was a reverse of the Church of the Force was it reminded me of and sorry, we went off at a tangent. So there, I didn't finish where I was coming from. If you remember during the original, not the original, sorry, the Road to Chuck Wendig novels. Come on, what are they called?
Aftermath.
Aftermath. Thank you. The Aftermath books. There was a bunch of anthologies or standalone stories that went, that every other chapter there'd be a very very short, brief, very brief happening that was going on during the main story, and one of those was the emergence of these bunch of kids that were trying to bring back Vader, or basically deluded themselves that Vader was still alive, or something along those lines. It's been quite a few years since I read them. But the point being is that I'm thinking to myself, maybe we're not talking about the Sith being in the background. Maybe we're just talking about a bunch of disillusioned people that are trying to resurrect the Sith, and to build an army of acolytes that can somehow find potentially a way of resurrecting the Sith later on down the line, which builds up to the Phantom Menace, of course. But anyway, that's one thing. Second thing, but despite that, I still don't think it's about that. I think it's really about a reckoning or some sort of reconciliation of an event that happened 10 years ago, which somewhat puts the image, this perfect spick and span, you know, highly saturated image of the Jedi into disrepute, and actually starts the discord, if you like, um, of public opinion towards their opinion of what the Jedi are and who they and what they and what value they bring to the galaxy. I don't know either way. Anyway, mate, lots to come. We're well over our time, as we normally are. Um, there's lots that we didn't talk about, lots that we will talk about. You're still traveling. I've just got back off a mental weekend. Let's talk a week from now and catch up during the week where we can to work things out. But thank you for recording, mate. And thank you to all of our listeners, the many, many listeners that we have. And take us out, mate.
I can do that. Um, if you're listening to this and there's parts of this episode that didn't make any sense, it's because I had internet issues most of the time. But I do appreciate it, and we'll be back next week with more exciting stuff. Thanks again. Until then,
E- Excellent. Look after each other. Take care. Love you all. See you next week.
bye.